Julie, it's so nice to have you here. I'm really glad to have this chance to talk with you and also a little bit about your workshop.
Well, it's always a pleasure, Allison, so I'm glad to be here too.
You know, Julie, I was really taken by your title, Breath and Inspiration, because I love a good play on words. And and I wondered why you chose it and what it means to you, and if you would talk a little bit about why it's important to you to teach a workshop on breath and inspiration.
Well, breathing is really, really important to me. I studied with Gabi, and as we all know, Gabi was just a master at breathing lessons. And I just remember trying to stay awake during all of them because I just didn't want to miss a moment of that exploration. So I really got fascinated with breathing. But then as I started to work with clients who had what I would call agitated nervous systems, and that could be someone who has cerebral palsy or is recovering from a stroke, or someone who has a lot of anxiety, I really, really understood how important the breath was to them and to helping them to not only move better, but to be quieter in their entire system, to be able to interact with other people so much easier. And so I wanted to learn more about breathing, and I ended up, a friend of mine is a physician, and I just asked her if she would spend some time with me. So we got together and we spent time with models and books and whatnot, and really looked at the relationship between the mechanisms in our body that support the breath and the mechanisms in our body that help us to stand upright, to help us to walk, et cetera, et cetera. And I really kind of was struck with the idea of how not only critical breathing is to just our being and our presence, but to that act of being creative. And when we're stiff and tight, it's very difficult to be creative and to be inspired to do anything, but also in terms of working with our clients. And I know as an assistant trainer that when I'm working with students in the training and they're worried about something, they're getting tense and tight, and they go, what do I do next? What do I do next? And I just want to say, just breathe.
Just breathe.
Just breathe.
Take a breath.
and that and that inspiration will come to you.
Hmm.
If you're not trying to grab something, it's just going to come to you.
Very nice. Julie, when you think back on what you have done with what you learned from Gabi, and
Mhm.
when you think about um, the people that you've worked with and how you've helped them, is there a particular client or a particular moment that you remember in your practice that was especially meaningful to you, maybe because of working with the breath with that person?
Oh, absolutely. I work very frequently with a psychologist, and we see people who have what's now called chronic regional pain syndrome, used to be called RSD. And there was a young woman who came in. She was in a wheelchair. Her right leg was just incredibly inflamed. Just horrible, horrible pain. I couldn't even touch it. And we worked with breathing. And in the course of a couple of weeks working with me and working with the psychologist, she was able to get out of her wheelchair. Her leg was perfectly normal. And she was able to go on and really live one of her avowed dreams, which was to have a baby. And
Wow.
it was so exciting to see. And most of what I was working with was helping her to regulate her nervous system just through her breath. So it was pretty potent.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like a Milton Erickson story.
Yeah, exactly.
And she went on to have 12 children and 75 grandchildren. That's really a very nice story. I'm sure that that is the kind of thing that most practitioners would love to have in their background, if something like that that they fall back on when they realize that there are people who get such help, not just because they learn to breathe, but something that really truly changed your life. It's
Hmm. Hmm.
What I'm wondering about is that this workshop is one that is open to everybody, to practitioners, to trainees, to the general public. And so I'm assuming that it's going to be all awareness through movement. Is that right?
Well, we're not going to be doing any FI per se, but I will be bringing in other exercises, and I'd like to incorporate how we interact with other people and how our breathing, and so especially for practitioners, that how we are breathing, how we are controlling our own breath can have an effect on other people. And I wrote a really long article that is in the last issue of In Touch, and it talks about some of my experiences and observations in growing up and noticing the differences in my parents, and how when my father was extraordinarily calm, I felt calm, I felt open, I was relaxed and able to talk about things, even if it was something very difficult to talk
Hmm.
about. And by contrast, my mother was a very anxious person, and it would tend to get, very short of breath, and it was very difficult to feel trusting and relaxed around her. So I think for practitioners to come and have the experience of how are you in a group, how are you with another person, in relation to yourself, all in relation to your breathing, I think it would be really, really useful.
In a way, it sounds like what it's about is holding space for your clients to have that transformational moment that we all yearn to give to our clients.
Absolutely, beautifully put. Yeah, I borrow that.
Yes, absolutely.
Great,
And just
thanks.
tell us, what day is your workshop?
I'm on Saturday.
Julie, I wish we had longer to talk, and I look forward to seeing you at the conference.
Sounds great. I'll see you there.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.